everybody, and welcome back to Lindsey's Little Library. So today I want to tell you about the best 22 books that I read in 2022. So many good books here. So I read a total of 90 books. That is the most I've read in any year. I'm pretty positive. It's quite a feat. 90, it's like no joke. I'm pretty proud of it. So I went through all of them, and just the first kind of 22 that stuck out to me, that's what I'm going to tell you about. I did not put them in any specific order because I just can't commit to that. So I'm just going to tell you, I don't know. I couldn't say like, I don't know. I can't do that. I can't make those decisions. So here's just the 22 books that I loved in 2022. No particular order. First one I want to talk about, Wish You Were Here by Jodi Picoult. Jodi does it again. She always seems to get me in a way where I think I know what I'm getting myself into. I also have a signed copy. I think I know what I'm getting into, and then I get into it and I'm like, whoa, not what I wanted. I was hesitant to pick up this book because it does take place during COVID, and I had read a book previously that also took place during COVID, and it didn't do anything for me. It was too COVID-y, if that makes any sense at all. I don't know if it does. But this one follows our main character, Diana. She is 30. She has a whole plan. She's going to get married by 30, have all her kids by 35, move out to the suburbs of New York City, be climbing the professional ladder. She has a whole thing. And her, I don't know if they were engaged, her boyfriend, are planning a trip to the Galapagos Islands, and that's like where they're going to get engaged, and it's this whole thing. And he is a resident at a hospital. And this book starts on what's my date? March 13th, 2020. It was a Friday. It's when they canceled school. I'll never forget it. Anyways, it starts March 13th, 2020. They're supposed to leave March 14th, 2020. And so this all hits, and they decide, you know what, Diane, you go, and I'll just meet you there. This is just going to be 2 weeks. I'll do what I can, and I'll meet you there. So she goes to the Galapagos, and she gets there just as the island is shutting down. So she's stuck there. Nothing's open, and has to rely on the kindness of strangers for survival, basically, until she can maybe try to get back. So fantastic book. Really loved it. So good. Next book I want to talk about is Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. This one is a bit of a psychological thriller, I guess you could call it, about a couple who struggling a little bit with their marriage, and so they decide to go away for the weekend, kind of get away from everything. They took their dog to them, and they were with them. They go to this very secluded, like Airbnb. It used to be an old church. It's in the middle of nowhere. There's a big snowstorm. Like they almost don't get there, to just kind of give themselves some me time and to maybe fix some things. And it's a thriller, so let's just say it doesn't quite go as planned. Total isolated thriller vibes, total winter vibes with this one. Fantastic. The next one I want to talk about, probably not as well known, is The Wicked Sister by Karen Dion. She also wrote The Marsh King's Daughter, which is where I first fell in love with her as an author. This one is even better. So it is about a girl, Rachel, who has chosen to kind of lock herself away in a psychiatric facility. She killed her parents, and she's like, I can't remember a lot of it. Parents are dead. She's doesn't really trust herself being out there, and so she has been living in a psychiatric facility for years and just kind of thinks she's doing good. She can sign herself out, and so she decides to leave. And when she does, she starts to kind of re-examine that night and question kind of what actually happened. So she goes home to Upper Michigan, where her sister is currently, and we go from there. And it's so good. The next one I want to talk about is All 13 by Christina Suntorvent. So this is a nonfiction middle grade book about the 12 soccer players and their coach who gets stuck in a cave during a monsoon. and it goes through how they are rescued. It was so good. I knew this story, but I didn't know this story and what actually had to happen. And the fact that everyone survived is just mind-blowing. So highly suggest. I read this, I want to say in like a day. I remember being at a basketball tournament, and any chance I got, I was like on my phone, like reading this book. So fantastic book. It's a quick read. Highly suggest. We'll keep going on the nonfiction train. So this one is The Sun Does Shine by Anthony Ray Hinton. This is about his journey being on death row. I forget for how long. Oh gosh, for quite a while. So in the 80s, he was convicted of murder, 2 counts of capital murder in Alabama, and put on death row. And then this is like his story of how they went through the appeals process, how he kept up this hope that seemed like it was just so much hope in such a hopeless situation. How he found himself there, the horrible biases and assumptions that were in place that put him there, and how he got out. It's such a good book. Highly recommend. Another really sweet book I want you to read is The 100 Years of Lenny and Margo. This is by Marianne Cronin. This follows a couple of young woman, Lenny, or oh gosh, how old is she? 17-year-old Lenny and 83-year-old, what's her name? Margo, duh. Oh my gosh. And they're both in the, what do they call it? The terminal ward at Glasgow Princess Royal Hospital. So obviously by the word terminal, we know that they're both nearing their end of life. They end up teaming up and having this really unique friendship. And they decide, since their ages added together to 100, they are going to do 100 pieces of art and share 100 stories from their lifetimes to kind of leave behind something. So you go through this with each of them, and it's so heartwarming. It's the friendship in here, so fantastic. I love this book. Love. Next one I want to talk about is Counterfeit by Kirsten Chen. So I listened to this on audio. I got this through Libro FM. Fantastic audiobook. And it is about a woman in kind of like, she's a very successful woman. She got married and had a child, and now she's raising her son, who is a little bit difficult. And so she's having a hard time kind of getting daycare. She has to give up her career and take care of him. And she's like just missing something. She's missing that work piece of her life. And so she teams up with an old friend of hers selling or doing a counterfeit scheme with really nice purses. And we go from there. And I so enjoyed this book. It's on my list for a reason. Pick it up. Next book I want to talk about is The Measure by Nikki Ehrlich. This is such a fantastic book. This would definitely be in the very top few if I really had to pick. This would be up there. So this one is based on the premise of one day, anyone in the world who's 22 or older wakes up to a little wooden box wherever they are, like homeless, house, wherever they are, little wooden box, and inside the box is a length of string with a measure that says the measure of your life lies within. And it goes through what people do with this information, figuring out what it means. What do we do then now that we have this information? And the shorter the string, the shorter your life your life will be. Longer the string, the longer your life will be. Whoa, does this go through some stuff. And it's just fantastic and phenomenal. If you want a book that makes you think, and this one is one you just got to sit in for a little bit. It took me a little longer to read, and I just had to sit in it, and I loved it. The next ones I have is Life's Too Short and Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez, continuing with her. I don't really think it's a series. I think they're companion novels, but I love the way she writes these rom-coms. There's funny, there's romance, there's definitely some sort of misunderstanding. There is some real stuff that they tackle. This one talks about Lou Gehrig's disease, and this one really centers around kind of family legacy and doing what you want to do versus doing what you're expected to do. Such good books. Love them both. Next one I have is Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. This one takes place at a camp. We have 2 timelines. We have missing girls. We have one girl who maybe doesn't remember everything that went right, and so she comes back to camp and things happen again, and it's fantastic. That was a really good definition of that book. All right, next one, The Last Flight by Julie Clark. So this one, based on the premise of two women who do not know each other, are both looking for kind of ways out of the life that they're currently in. They happen to run across each other. I don't know, fate. I don't know what brought them together. And they decide to switch tickets for their flight. You know, they switch. And one of the flights goes down. It's so much more than that, but I can't tell you more, but it's so good. Next book I want to talk about is Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. Kind of forgot I had two Alice Feeneys on here. Another thriller, isolated thriller with, and then there were none Agatha Christie type tropes to it. And really awesome seaside setting. I loved it. Next one we have Sold on the Monday by Christina McMorris. I need to read more Christina McMorris. This is my first one I read by her. Takes place in the Great Depression and follows a photographer journalist as he takes a picture of a sign that says 2 children for sale in front of 2 kids. And he writes about kind of where America is at that time and then the ripple effect that that photo has, not only for him, but also for the family. Really, really good. Next one I want to talk about is The Family Game by Catherine Steadman. Fantastic thriller, takes place between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And that's when I read it, and I would highly suggest that. It was really, really good. And we have our main character, Harriet, who is being introduced to her fiance's family, who is a very prestigious family and a little quirky. And she gets roped right in, and it's not always a good thing. The Appeal by Janice Hallett. Oh my gosh, you guys. One of the most unique books I have read because you are almost part of the team trying to figure out how to solve this mystery of one murderer or one person has been murdered and there's 15 suspects. And you're given like this kind of case file to go through and determine who had the motive, who did it, all of it. It was so good. Read this book. All right, Hotel in the Corner, Bitter and Sweet by Jamie Ford. Oh, such a good book. Takes place in 1986 and then goes back in time to the 1940s. Follows 2 characters. We have Henry and Keiko. Henry is Chinese, Keiko is Japanese, and so in 1946, or in the 1940s, she was sent to an internment camp. It talks about their friendship, their relationship, and then kind of what happens 40 years later. It was really, really good. I don't know why I waited so long to read this book. It was so good. And then we have Witches of Moonshine Manor by Bianca Maris. This one, again, so good. Very different from what she normally writes. We have 5 witches in their 80s, basically facing foreclosure on their house because, well, they're having some financial troubles. And so they know that they have, one of the witches has a way to get them out of this, just maybe not the memory to help them get there. So they really have to team up, and they also team up with a girl. She is a TikToker. How old is she? 14, something like that. And so she comes and is determined to help these ladies out. It's so good. I loved it. Another one I read the first 2 Finley Donovan books by El Casimino. Such a great book. I feel like it is a modern, updated take on the Stephanie Plum series by Janet Ivanovich. So Finley Donovan finds herself, again, financial issues. She's trying to get a book written and get it sold, and she's saying this premise of what her book is in a Panera to her agent or publicist. And someone else overhears her but takes it as if she is a person they can hire to assassinate someone. And so she's given this offer to kill this woman's husband. She's like, well, I don't know. She just ends up in these situations that are hilarious and crazy, and it's so good. So good. I loved it. Next one I have is The Address by Fiona Davis. Such a good one. Another dual timeline. So we have the Dakota that is built in 1884. There is a woman brought over from, I don't remember where, England maybe, to kind of be the manager of the Dakota. And there's an interesting relationship between Theo, who built the Dakota, and Sarah, who brought over there. So then 100 years later, we have an interior designer who is just out of rehab. She's looking for opportunities. She's given this chance to basically redo this apartment in the Dakota that her grandfather was a ward of this Theo. And she ends up coming across some interesting historical information about a murder that potentially happened and all of the crazy secrets involved, and it's really good. I need to read more Fiona Davis as well. Next one I have is Find Me by Alifar Burke. This one, again, was the one that I don't even know where I heard of this one. It was kind of very random, because I think it's even part of a series, but you don't have to read the series. But it's basically a sister trying to find her missing sister, who tends to kind of go off the radar every so often, so it's not really out of her character, but like she just knows this time is different, and so trying to find, maybe it's not sisters, maybe it's friends. I just remember really liking it. And then Surviving Savannah by Patty Callahan, another historical fiction about the steamship Pulaski, which went down after it left the port in Savannah. It was one of the largest steamship sinking catastrophes, other than the Titanic. And so this follows dual timelines as far as the passengers on it. You know some survivors, but you don't know a lot, because it is the dual timeline, and just kind of going into the details as far as what decisions were made or not made that led to this tragedy. Such a good book. Really enjoyed it. Makes me want to go to Savannah so very, very bad. So hopefully, if you lasted this long, 22 fantastic books for 2022 in less than 22 minutes. I'll take it. Anyways, if you've read any of these, comment below. Otherwise, what is your favorite book or two that you read in 2022? Put that list below for me. That'd be fantastic. Otherwise, like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. And we'll see you next time. Bye.